If you can believe it, it is Friday once again. And I'm talking David Lynch movies. Hi, everybody. My name is Zach, and I like movies. And today's movie is really a seminal David Lynch work. It is his surreal, American, neo-noir, horror melodrama from 1986. His absolutely wonderful movie, Blue Velvet. And it is starring regular Lynch collaborators, Kyle MacLachlan and Dern as well. And where in it, Kyle MacLachlan, in walking through a field one day, he comes across a severed ear, just kind of in the grass. And that sort of leads him into this dark, disturbing conspiracy involving this lounge singer played by Isabella Rossellini and a absolutely psychotic gangster played by Dennis Hopper. And this was a real return to this was David Lynch returned into his comfort zone. Like at this point, he has been really kind of established himself as like a known name by this point. Like he'd made breaking through with his midnight movie Racerhead, and then sort of achieving more studio and public acclaim with works like The Elephant Man, and also having probably honestly the biggest disaster of his career, his 1984 adaptation of Dune, which he hated working on, had a terrible time with it, but this one, it was him like really trying to return back to his comfort zone of that more sort of like surrealish about like sort of examining like dreams and ideas and just sort of nightmares and the things that sort of haunt us. And Blue Velvet is it's a story of innocence lost, but it's the kind of innocence that gets lost when you come of age and what kind of like darkness is hiding under our seemingly idyllic homes. Like one of the stories that inspired him to make this was a moment he had as a kid living in the suburbs, where he in the 50 suburbs, where he and his brother, they were outside playing, and a naked woman like walked out of the woods, and she was like had her nose bleeding, and it really upset them, and he sort of wrote out this story about what situation that woman was in to kind of get to that moment. And it's sort of, and yeah, like I said, it's sort of coming of age and sort of realizing that, yeah, there was a lot of like messed up stuff that was going on that you might not have known about, that was always that was always there, you just weren't aware of it, or really didn't have the curiosity for it, the kind of darkness and frankly depravity that goes on in Blue Velvet. It made it very controversial. It got horrendous notices in its test audiences. Roger Ebert famously hated this movie. He thought it was horrible to its characters, thought it was misogynistic to Rossellini's character, but Lynch stuck to his guns. And also his producer, who I have to shout out, Dino De Laurentiis, kind of a famous producer through a lot of the 80s and 70s, and he often would come in and like tinker around, kind of like mess him up and stuff, but like he really believed in the movie. He really felt, and he basically helped Lynch get basically a final cut, which was a pretty sweet deal, especially after how disastrous Dune turned out for him. But I'd say, yeah, it's got Kyle MacLachlan. He played it actually like honestly, the beginning of this movie is really quintessential Lynch. It opens on this like lovely score with these like blue velvet curtains that open up, and we are introduced into this like very sunny small town Americana montage of Lumberton, North Carolina. There's pastel rose gardens and white picket fences and daisies, and the firemen wave at you, and like mom is sipping some tea watching an old noir. But then we watch this man who's just like watering his lawn, and he has this really nasty stroke, and it focuses hard on the harsh sounds of the hose and the dog sort of biting at the water, and the camera gets really close up to the man and past him, and it like seeps into the blades of grass beneath them, and we see the bugs and the beetles and the worms just like crawling and underneath into the dirt, and it's so loud. Like that's David Lynch, and that's kind of also like the movie in a nutshell. Just yeah, this beautiful sort of almost dreamlike. Honestly, the sort of like artificiality of how this small town suburbia looks, it honestly does feel like a dream. And whereas like, but like the world, the underbelly of that dream is very, it's very disquieting. It's very nightmarish. And so that man was actually the dad of Kyle MacLachlan's character, Jeffrey who's go by Jeffrey Beaumont. And he comes to town, and he comes back to town just sort of visiting his dad while he's in the hospital, and he stumbles upon an ear just in the field, and like he shows it to the detective. The detective has a great sees it. He's like, "Yep, that's a human ear, all right." This movie is often funny in the way that like there has this almost, some of the delivery feels very very quaint. These sort of like almost like Leave It to Beaver sort of simplistic tell like it is quality to it. And he's Jeffrey's like curiosity about the ear, like you find an ear in the middle of a field, you kind of want to like know more about it. Where did it come from? Want to, and it's that curiosity that sort of wants him to like, he kind of wants to know more about the case. And he keeps talking to the detective, and that sort of catches the eye of the detective's daughter, Sandy, who's played by Laura Dern, who, by the way, has one of the most beautiful character introductions I've ever seen in a movie. It's that out of this pure pitch black darkness, she walks in slowly into the light of the lawn, and she's all like blue eyes, blonde hair, like pink shirt. She's like, she almost looks like a Barbie doll. She's gorgeous, and she has this beautiful, and it like walks out into like this Bernard Herrmann score cue. It's gorgeous, and she says, "Are you the boy who found the ear?" Which is just an amazing sentence to ask. And and both like Dern and MacLachlan here, they have a really wonderful like innocence to them. Like MacLachlan especially, I think this movie works so well because of MacLachlan. He has a very boyish quality, boyish innocence to the two of them, to like him and like Sandy alike with her, and it's real, and they have wonderful chemistry, and you could see how they would become regulars with David Lynch. They just sort of like clicked onto the style, and sometimes he would even like not even like give them like, he would not like sit them down and like talk about the characters with them. He would just like give them he would say like a word like, "Okay, in this scene I want you to be like the wind." And she would just kind of understand what he wants out of her. Like, "Oh, you want me to just like sort of breeze, walk in breezily, just like," and it's marvelous. And they have wonderful chemistry too. They're clearly sweet on each other. Jeffrey does this little chicken walk bit, and it's like it's some nice riz that he's got. It's the two's sort of joint curiosity really gets the better of them, and because she like listens into like what her dad listens to with his his cases and stuff, and so the two sort of like plot to like find out about this lounge singer who goes by Dorothy Valens, and that's Isabella Rossellini's character. And Jeffrey's like really gung-ho, and he decides to like break into her apartment with like this, like he even has plans that like kind of go nowhere, but he breaks into her apartment one night, and it's sort of, and it's then he can't get out before she like gets in, so he like hides in the closet, and he's watching her, he's watching her, and he's stuck there, and he's watching her get undressed, and he's like alone, and he is like kind of like it is a voyeuristic scene, but like it's shot in a way that is absolutely not titillating at all, some like like if this was like a De Palma movie, it'd be like, oh, it'd be like, like trying to get as close as possible. But like here, it's like it's shot from like has this like middle distance shot length, like in this like wide shot, and like you can tell, that there's like there's something alluring about this that Jeffrey has, but like the more he watches her and how she behaves, and like this phone call she answers, she's like he's very more put off by her, and then she finds him, and then they have this like sort of uncomfortable moment where like it's basically like the voyeur's greatest fantasy. You're watching this woman be undressed and she's beautiful, and then she like catches you and immediately tries having sex with you, and it's very like, and it's very like you're really like and it is sort of this scene of like of like Jeffrey like being aroused and like allured to this, but there's an element of uncomfortableness because she has like a knife. She has a knife in one hand and a stick in the other. But then in walks Dennis Hopper as Frank Booth. This guy is a piece of work. Like, this is one of the most like insane, very deranged, uncomfortable screen villains I've ever seen. Like she hides him in the closet, and he walks in, and he's like he's already like furious at her, and he's yelling at her and swearing at her, and then he's like and then he goes through this like really disturbing, like ritualistic, like sex assault. Like, because it is a sex assault. Like we can infer things about like how Dorothy talks to Frank, how she's like there's like babying, she's like babying him, and like calling herself, she's calling herself mommy, and like he like takes it, like it's like taking a hit from like this like gas mask. It's like I think of this of like ether or something like that, and he like almost like recedes into this like child quality, like he's like staring between her legs going like mommy, and like and just getting more angry and violent, like he's like screaming at her, hitting her, assaulting her. It's and like the whole time you're just like, Jeffrey, you're just stuck watching this like, what the hell did I walk into? And oh my god, like I honestly can't think of two braver performances than Isabella Rossellini and Dennis Hopper in this one movie. It's great that like the things they do and the places they go is really uncomfortable. And like I don't think people were wrong, to feel sensitive about Dorothy Valens, and like because she goes through a lot. She has eventually we find out that like her husband was kidnapped, like her child was kidnapped, her husband was kidnapped, and she's basically sort of forced to be a victim to this absolute wild card of some like small town thug who's like maybe he's working with the cops, maybe he's a drug enforcer, he's got connections, he's got a crew of like just complete scumbags, and he's completely insane. He's unpredictable. But he's also like he like clearly has like some weird pain, and he has like some moments we see him, and he has moments of stillness where he's like he's feeling true deep feelings underneath him, and it like brings him to tears almost. But like Rose, like, it's not just from Dennis Hopper, who's like known to really go there as an actor, but like Rossellini, she finds so much depth and tragedy in this what's essentially a femme fatale character, and there is humanity in how she is a victim, and also sort of in a way victim, and she is a victim, and she does victimize Jeffrey in a way and wants to be hurt by Jeffrey. Like she's sort of like this relationship that she's had with Frank sort of metastasizing. It's hurt people hurting people, and oh man, it's incredible. And the fact that this was Isabella Rossellini's second movie is amazing, and she's been nothing but marvelous since then. And it really is mostly this main scene that's a serious turning point that sort of upsets the narrative and will upset the audience if you're not prepared for it. And it does sort of lead to a conversation between Jeffrey and Sandy later. I think the next scene where he asks her like, why are there people like Frank? Why is there so much trouble in the world? Which is a little to the point, but it also is the point. This is a kid discovering this kind of violence and depravity for the first time in his life. How are you supposed to react to something like that other than just asking why? How do you do something like this to another person? Why is Frank like that? Where did he come from? And Sandy kind of gives this like moment of a bit of comfort where like she has this wonderful poetic speech about this dream she had about the Robins and how they left for a while but then they came back later, and when the sun broke out of the clouds, it has this has a wonderful top of where like when she ends it, Jeff just kind of looks at her very very goo-goo-eyed and say, gosh, you're a neat girl. There's like it is kind of the way, and I think a lot of what goes on with Frank, goes on with Frank, the more that Jeff dives into this mystery and is confronted by Frank, who has like oftentimes he has these unpredictable outbursts, and oftentimes they can be kind of I don't want him to be funny, but I can't help but laugh sometimes. Like I don't want any positive association with this character, but he's just kind of intimidating him. He's like, what kind of beer drinking? Heineken? Fuck that shit! Pabst Blue Ribbon! And he's just like off the wall sometimes like that, and it's like you don't know what he's gonna do next. Like, and even the way that he beats up Jeffrey is like it's so disturbing, especially like when they bring in these great vintage needle drops. Like the most famous one obviously is this scene where he goes to like a buddy's place, and who's played by Jack Palance, and he's so Jack Nance, I should say, and he's so he is this weird guy who might be like a drug dealer, who's like scenes into like a fog. He lip syncs Roy Orbison's "In Dreams" song into a fog light, and it's so weird. It's just so like it's one of the best examples of that kind of a sweet, gentle song, gentle love song being used for just the complete just to set a tone that is the complete opposite. And it's a movie that goes to dark and uncomfortable places, but that's sort of what nightmares feel like, and the ways that it like focuses on like sometimes there'll be moments of like Jeffrey kind of thinking back on what he's witnessed, and like he'll imagine Frank screaming in like slow motion, and like this candle like just like humming and then like getting blown out by the harsh wind, and I think if there was like a central fear to this movie, it would be the fear of adulthood. Fear of that loss of innocence, sort of, and sort of about like you're sort of drawn to something, but you're also afraid of what you're drawn to, or at least afraid of what you'll become if you find what you're looking for. and like I guess, and like a question would be like, can I seek out my desires without turning into a Frank? Someone like Frank, someone so harsh and violent and hurt and just angry. God, and yeah, and then but even though there is a lot of nightmarish quality to it, there is also there is lightness at the end, and I think that's sort of been one of the more. It has what I would say is one of David Lynch's more optimistic endings. I think he has this very, and again, he's sort of returning to that Suburbia, but now we understand it a little more, and the Robins came home, and there was darkness, but there was light, and at least for now, the evil has been defeated, and even if it's not gone forever, we understand it more, and I think it'll more, and I think, and also in a way, this sort of like interesting artificial small town facade that sort of like shows its underbelly, the underbelly darkness of it a little more. This feels actually like a precursor to Twin Peaks in a way, and this is honestly, this is one of Lynch's best, and honestly a pretty good starting point. I think this could also work really well if you want to like really understand like what kind of director David Lynch typically is, because like there is something like The Straight Story or Elephant Man, but this is like David Lynch with a capital DL, and it is one of the most accomplished genre art films, not just of the 1980s but also of all time. The score is lovely. The choice of vintage pop songs works so well. The widescreen cinematography. I also love the production design too, of like how Dorothy's apartment is like sort of specifically sweet, and like it's sweet and also dingy and dark when it needs to be. Just incredible performances. It has a great balancing out of the dark, the darkness within ourselves, but also the light that we also share. And I think this is really an absolute high watermark for David Lynch, one of his masterpieces. And if you haven't seen it, you absolutely must. Also, good transfer for the Criterion. I really, it looks gorgeous. It sounds great, and can't recommend this enough. It's a classic for a reason, and I think that'll be it for this one. I will be back again next week. I think next is Wild at Heart, which that's one I haven't seen yet. I'm very excited for that one. And so for now, that'll be it. I'm Zach. I like movies. I have a lot more movies to watch. What did you think of Blue Velvet? And just keep watching movies, because movies are life. And I will see you all next time. You take care of yourselves.